stop picking bad PC parts. Let's get you the best PC parts for your 2023 PC build. Hi, welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason, and it's time for an intervention. I see so many people picking bad PC parts, it's driving me insane. So today, we're gonna dispel the crazy PC building myths and teach you how to build a PC in 2023 by picking the best PC parts for gaming or productivity to achieve your actual build goals and within your specified budget. If you get value out of the video, please give it a like because it really helps out the channel. And of course, subscribe and click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. With that, let's jump into it. So let's start out with the most important thing that you're gonna do for your PC build, which is setting your goals for performance and understanding your own budget. Now this step is so critical, yet I see people neglect it or they get distracted from it, which can lead to weaker performance and lots of wasted money. I see people all the time get fixated on one shiny part that they decide they have to have, like a cool but expensive PC case or a super powerful CPU that they don't actually need, which costs them performance. So your first decision is whether this PC is primarily for gaming or is it primarily for professional level production work in video editing, Blender, etc. Now the good news is that any modern gaming PC, it can handle any of those production tasks reasonably well. But if you're a professional doing work for money, or you're in school for these types of tasks, then you're going to want to optimize your PC for these specific professional applications that you use. And I recommend checking out their system recommendations to guide your build. Now, if you are building a gaming focused PC, here are the key questions that will guide your build. Number one, what kind of games do you want to play and what resolution and FPS are you expecting? This is going to determine what CPU and GPU combo that we focus on, and you'll need to ensure that you have a monitor that's going to give you the resolution and frame rate that you're looking for. So for instance, if you want to play esports titles at 1440p, 240 Hz, you're going to need a monitor that can handle that. Number two, what kind of audio experience do you want? Will you be using the onboard motherboard audio using the analog jack either on the motherboard itself or on the front PC panel? Or are you going to use a digital device connected by USB or HDMI that has its own audio processing? This will be important for selecting the motherboard, including the cost. Number three, how important are aesthetics to you? This can run the gamut from a color theme build to the simple addition of RGB lighting or an AIO cooler, to not caring at all what your PC looks like. Remember, it's your money and you're the one who has to live with your PC, so it's totally fine to spend money on aesthetics if that enhances your overall enjoyment. Let's talk about the basics of gaming PC builds and where to put extra money if you have it in your budget to increase FPS, audio experience, or aesthetics. So when building a gaming PC, we want to get the absolute fastest GPU we can afford in our budget with a CPU that just won't bottleneck our GPU. We have a whole video on CPU and GPU combos that I'll leave a link down in the video description. But right now, the relevant GPUs include the NVIDIA RTX 3000 and 4000 series, RTX 2060, and some older GPUs like the GTX 1660 series. On the AMD side, we have the RX 7000 series GPUs, RX 6000 series GPUs, avoid the RX 6500 XT, and we still have some new RX 580 listings out there. For CPUs, the most relevant ones are the Ryzen 5000, especially the 5600 and 5600X, along with the 5800X3D for higher end builds, Ryzen 7000 CPUs for faster GPUs, and 12th and 13th generation Intel CPUs, starting with the i3 1200F and i5 12400F, and going up to the i5 13600K and even i9 13900K. So what about the rest of the build? Well, for RAM, our baseline is 16 gigabytes total in a kit of 2 sticks, as additional RAM over and above that doesn't really increase our gaming performance. For storage, we can go 500 gigabytes, but I'd recommend at least a 1 terabyte of budget NVMe M.2 SSD storage, and you really can just buy the cheapest one, as getting a faster SSD won't increase gaming performance. If we're not using the onboard motherboard audio, then we can just buy a budget motherboard. If we do care about the motherboard audio, we're looking for a motherboard with an ALC 1200 or better audio codec listed in the specs, and we prefer ALC 1220 or ALC 4080, which provide roughly the same audio quality, just in a slightly different way. For very budget builds, ALC 897 audio codec is perfectly fine. For a CPU cooler, we can either go with the included box cooler if our CPU comes with one, or we'll need to go with a third-party cooler, and we have a whole video on that. Finally, for the PC case, we're just looking for something with good airflow and at least 2 intake fans and 1 exhaust fan. Now, it's really easy to overspend on your PC case, and the max that I would look to spend is about 10% of your budget. For the power supply, we size that by taking the max draw of all of our parts in an application like PC Part Picker, then we multiply it by 1.5 to get the minimum wattage we're looking for. And we want a PSU rated at least C tier or better on the PSU Cultist list, which I'll leave linked down in the video description, along with our detailed guide on how to buy the best power supply. If we do have extra money to spend, we generally want to get a faster GPU, as that is the part that will affect our FPS the most. But do note that as we go up in GPU power, we will hit a point where increasing the CPU will also make sense, which we describe in specific detail in our best CPU and GPU combo video linked below. You can also add features you'd like to have, like liquid cooling, RGB, and other aesthetics, or you can increase the SSD or RAM. Just note that these features are not going to have any real FPS impact, but they may increase your enjoyment of the PC itself. If you are building a production-focused PC, it's a little more complicated, and again, it should be based on the system recommendations of the software suites that you're going to be using. But generally, you're going to want at least 32 gigabytes of RAM, at least 2 terabytes of SSD storage, and a possibly higher quality SSD with a DRAM cache, including faster Gen 4 NVMe drives, an 8-core CPU or higher, and sufficient cooling for that CPU. A powerful enough GPU that won't bottleneck the CPU is also required. And if you have specific needs like extra high-speed USB ports or Thunderbolt 4, then you're going to want a motherboard with that feature or that has a header for an add-in card that includes it. So let's talk a little bit about future-proofing or having a future upgrade path in your PC build. Now, those are actually two separate things. So to clarify, future-proofing is spending extra money on a component to add functionality that's not useful right now, but might be useful in the future. So for instance, buying a motherboard that will allow you to use PCIe Gen 5 speed devices, or a gamer spending extra to get a PCIe Gen 4 SSD instead of a cheaper Gen 3 one. While an upgrade path, that just means that you can upgrade the CPU, GPU, storage, or RAM in the future and have the system still be relevant. I think that it's still fine to consider a platform like AMD's AM5 Ryzen 7000 over Ryzen 5000 or Intel, due to the fact that AMD will release future AM5 Ryzen CPUs that will be drop-in compatible with the motherboard you're buying right now. Or a video editor who spends a little extra getting a motherboard with extra M.2 SSD slots when they know they're going to add storage to them in the future. But in my opinion, future-proofing is almost always a losing proposition. For instance, spending extra money on features that are not relevant for your use case right now, like PCIe Gen 4 SSDs or PCIe Gen 5 device-capable motherboards, because the money we spend on those features, it just means less money on our PC performance right now. And tech moves so fast, by the time we want to upgrade, there's a good chance a new build will make more sense anyway. So we're trading away the present to gamble on a possible future, and in my experience, that almost never works out. Here's another big one to consider. When in the year should you be buying your PC parts? In 2023, we expect a number of CPU and GPU launches, starting with CES in early January and going all the way through at least the summer for GPU launches. We also expect DDR5 RAM prices to continue to go down as production ramps up and new kits hit the market. So typically, the closer you buy a product to the launch, the more expensive it is, but at the same time, the more relevant it is. Remember that all technology depreciates in value, and if all you ever consider is the price that you're paying right now, then the answer is always to wait. But that means that you never end up actually getting anything. Instead, we need to value the time that we have the PC. An economist would call this the opportunity cost of not buying and the amount of time that it remains relevant for our use, including things like running the latest games. So yes, waiting 6 months might mean that your PC costs $60 less, but would you have rather paid $10 a month to be using that PC for those 6 months that you waited, and while the PC was at its most relevant? I think most people would say yes. The other thing to consider is, of course, major sales. I think most buyers are probably aware of the Black Friday holiday shopping period, which begins in early November, hits its peak in Black Friday, which happens right after the American Thanksgiving holiday, and lasts until Cyber Monday on the following Monday. From there, we still see some deals until after the new year when we have some last chance sales. But Amazon has changed things as well, because we also now have Prime Day in the summer, usually between the middle of June and the middle of July. But they've done it on a different date every single year. Other retailers also have big blowout sales at the same time as Prime Day, so it could be a good time to shop them as well. But I will say, if you're looking for a great deal on NVIDIA GPUs or Intel CPUs, it's fairly rare that you'll find one even over Black Friday. And most of the deals, they're only a little bit off and frankly not worth the wait. I would only wait for these sales if it was about a month away from Prime Day and maybe 2 months away from Black Friday. Otherwise, honestly, the discounts usually aren't enough to make it worth the wait. The last thing that I want to focus on is keeping it simple, especially if you haven't done a build in a while, or if this is going to be your very first PC build. I see so many new and returning builders get stuck in a paralysis by analysis, trying to ensure their build can do everything from high-end overclocking to production to gaming and more. Or they try for a super complicated build with tons of fans and RGB that's difficult to pull off. They either end up spending way too much, or worse yet, they never even buy the parts because it all just becomes so overwhelming. My advice is just to keep it simple and stay focused on your primary build goals. And of course, it's important to get feedback from the community on your build. We have the Boost My Build series here, where we pick a variety of builds and budgets every episode, so everyone can see something helpful for them. If you haven't checked out the series, it's linked down in the video description and it's a lot of fun. We also highly recommend the PC Part Picker forums or Linus Tech Tip forums, or the Build a PC Reddit, where you can post your build list with your use case and ask for feedback. It's always a good idea to get feedback from multiple places. That way, some well-meaning person who doesn't know enough won't steer you in the wrong direction. Remember, we have tons of build guides for every performance and budget level, from an i3 12100F budget build to a Ryzen 5600 or i5 12400 mid-range build, to builds using the higher end CPUs like the Ryzen 5800X 3D or 7600X or Intel i5 13600K, and more. And of course, if you aren't sure what to build and you just have a budget, we do monthly build guides that are total budget based as well. I'll leave a link to the build playlist link down in the video description. Remember, if you got value out of the video, give it a like as it makes a huge difference for the channel, and of course subscribe and click that bell icon, that way you get notified when we release cool content. Let me know down in the comments what kind of PC you're looking to build in 2023, what parts are you considering, and what's your budget. And if you're looking for the build list, I'll leave a whole thing linked right here. You can just click on this and start browsing through all the various builds that we've got, and we'll catch you on the next one.